Before President Trump's February 28th address to a joint session of Congress, the president sent bullet points to the non-mainstream media outlet InfoWars, run by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. In fact, Jones previously boasted of having received personal phone calls from Trump thanking him for Jones's support in winning the election. Jones is one of many from the alternative media, both left and right, who see Trump as a salve to the New World Order globalization agenda. From the perspective of the right, Trump's America First, anti-immigrant and pro-military agenda seems to fit the bill, while the left hopes for rapprochement with countries like Russia and Iran, working with them toward peace in Syria, for example. Dr. Cynthia McKinney would certainly put herself into the camp on the left, having served as Georgia's first black congresswoman for 6 terms, where she questioned the 9/11 Commission and drafted articles of impeachment against then-President George W. Bush over the Iraq War. I recently interviewed Dr. McKinney, starting by asking her if Trump is actually a fundamental agent of change to the political system, that dreaded swamp in Washington. Take a listen.
Well, he does represent a change to what has been happening over, say, for the last 10 to 15 years. But is it fundamental change? I'm not so sure of that. Basically, what I believe is happening is that we've got one section of the deep state that is in deep and high contention against the other section of the deep state. So this is not the people versus the deep state. This is deep state versus deep state with the people as an adjunct. And so now there are 3 things that I have identified that that concern me greatly about the Trump administration. First of all, there's this mentality of these people that populate his cabinet are basically business people. And so therefore, it's the art of the deal that is the ultimate arbiter of whether something goes or doesn't go, or whether something is considered to be successful or not. And so when your major criterion is the art of the deal, then any deal becomes preferable to no deal. But at some point, maybe it's better to have no deal than to have just some deal. So this idea, this mentality about closing the deal bothers and worries me. Then there's also the other thing that comes with the business arena, and that is not so much focus on ethics and morality. And so as long as you can close the deal, we don't care what the deal is, and we don't care whether we get the deal in an ethical manner or in an immoral manner. It's just a matter of making sure we don't go to prison. And so this kind of mentality, playing fast and loose with ethics and morality, also is a potential stumbling block, I believe, to the Trump administration and those cabinet members with that kind of a background in it. The third problem that I see is the lack of governance experience. And I think we kind of saw that with the Flynn flap. Whereas if I were there, I would have recorded the conversation myself. And so I would have my own transcript if what we are being told is correct. And there's no guarantee that what we're being told by either side is correct. But if what we've been told by the Trump administration is correct, then General Flynn should have been able to present the public with his own transcript and say, okay, now you guys, if you want to criticize what's contained in this transcript, you go right ahead and show me yours. So I think that the lack of experience in governance, coupled with the lack of grounding in ethics and morality, and believe me, just because your intention is to do the right thing, government, as we saw with the Hillary Clinton email flap, is mired with all kinds of rules and regulations in an ad hoc way that have been put together when one member of Congress does something or one member of the executive branch does something, then you get a little rule. And so it's not a cogent set of rules. Therefore, it's easy to step on a landmine. It's easy to get tripped up. And believe me, I know about stepping on those landmines. You got to understand where they are in governance and avoid them at all costs. I don't know that the group of business people has ever had to deal with this kind of compliance issue, because basically that's what this is. This is compliance, and the whole world can see whether or not, or the extent to which you are in compliance.
Right. Well, it shouldn't be difficult for the administration to get hold of a transcript. I'm sure they could call the NSA up because they're monitoring everybody, right? So there is obviously there is suspicion, and there's, I think, reasonable suspicion about the nature of Trump and his administration's relationship to Russia, on one hand. On the other hand, there's the notion of this should not be a problem, considering that every administration has certain relationships with particular countries of their choosing, whether it be Israel, Saudi Arabia, China, the UK, NATO, you name it, right? So the idea that Trump is going to be friendly and soft on Russia just goes to show, fundamentally, I believe, the Cold War liberal mentality that is undergirding the attack on Trump. And obviously, I think you're someone who would criticize that mentality and say, this is ultimately going to lead us to continuing conflict against Russia, no?
Well, first of all, I have to quibble with the terminology, because in one of my radio shows, what I talked about was, who I am, what I stand for, what my values are, and where I think I fit on the political spectrum. I think I fit on the left. And what I see coming from what's purported in the special interest corporate press to be the left is not me. And so therefore, my values demand anti-war, pro-justice, pro-peace, pro-truth, and pro-dignity for the environment as well as all humanity. Therefore, what I see coming from the other side of the deep faction, of the deep state faction, is not left. And so if we put this in a left-right paradigm, I think we're doing an injustice to the true leftists like me, who are led by principles and values rather than by personalities. That's the first part. The second part is that here again, we get into the issue of the ethics, because the first thing that the entire Trump family should have done was put their holdings, however extensive they are and however that is done legally, but put that in a blind trust so that there is a wall between the Trump company and the Trump family. That should have been done in the beginning. Now, of course, you get into this ethics question about what is the relationship between Trump, his businesses, and Russia, which is an unnecessary conversation, but is necessary now because the necessary groundwork hasn't been done in terms of building that wall, that ethical wall that should have been built a long time ago.
Absolutely. And certainly, again, I think there are plenty of valid criticisms of Trump, but in terms of the way that the media in the United States is turning this, it's almost become a farce, frankly, because you open the New York Times and almost every article is focused around Trump. Every article in some form of attack on the man personally or his policies. Yeah. And you served with George Bush in the White House. Do you think that this level of attack on the president is warranted?
Well, I think what we've seen is extreme. And it's so extreme that at one point I have compared the context of the situation to the time around just prior to the assassination of JFK. Because we've got the equivalent of Trump, the laser it's the attacks ad hominem have been over the top, in my opinion, and have diverged from, how can I say, the normal political sort of anti-fair, but something else is going on. And it's that something else that could become quite dangerous.
Certainly. It's difficult to really assess what is happening, because on one level, there's the argument that the deep state is coming after Trump, and that's the Michael Flynn issue. When Flynn resigned, it was essentially the argument is the deep state went after him, and now this fellow McMaster, this General McMaster, is coming in. He's basically more in line, apparently, with the neocon perspective, anti-Russia, but at the same time, Trump is now saying he wants to go and put $50 billion into the military-industrial complex. So it's really difficult to assess what's happening and whether or not Trump is actually really being challenged by the deep state, or if he is ultimately working, in a sense, vicariously to, how do you say, not well, just working towards the ultimate goal, but there's almost a phony opposition that's being created.
Well, like I say, which deep state are you talking about? Because there are two distinct deep states that are in contention with each other. And I think it's very clear, in my opinion, what side of the divide the Donald Trump faction of the U.S. deep state is. I think that's very clear. It doesn't mean that it's the deep state versus Donald Trump. No, Donald Trump has a whole lot of help, and it's from the other side, the other faction of the deep state. Let's remember that.